Good day, Gina Grad.
Good day to you.
Handball, Brian. Hi, guy. Hi, guy. Let's see. So I had some philosophical thoughts. One is I do say to people all the time, change always feels bad, but it doesn't feel bad when you get some distance from it. And usually people are very fearful of change. You know, we never really think about what we're scared of. And we talk about, well, we're scared of tornadoes and sharks and spiders and quicksand and large crowds and marauding gangs and stuff. But the number one thing that everyone agrees on is change. Everyone's always fighting change. Mm-hmm. You know, if you even think about it in a small way, it's why people fight all the time. Like when your wife goes, well, why don't you put your keys by the front door because then you'll know where they are and then I'll be able to find them. They go, I have a system, woman. You know what I mean? It's like she's asking you to change just a little bit. Think about every time someone goes, hey, well, you know, rinse the coffee mug out a little if you're going to leave it at the sink, whatever. They go, hey, I was going to do the dishes anyway. Like you're essentially fighting change, like micro, macro, like it's always a change. And so,
don't tell me how to live my life.
Right. And so then you get into that, like, you know, when I was a kid, my dad was in the military and I had to keep changing schools, you know, and everyone goes, oh man, that's a bummer. Oh, I had to change schools. So change. But then I always say to people, whether it was a job or whether it was a relationship, you know, Gina, you were in a relationship for when I met you, and now you're in another relationship, and I've never seen you happier.
Yeah.
But there's a window when you're out of the first relationship where like this
changed. Is there?
It's more of a sliding door for you. It's not so much a porthole or window.
It's French doors.
It's one of those bifolding super deluxe Malibu houses where it disappears into the wall.
Yeah. It's the Hilton conference room where you take the wall out and it's two conference rooms.
Literally removing walls. Yeah. So it's not just a window of change, but during that window, you're thinking, man, this is bad. I wish this thing didn't happen that put this change upon me. And a lot of people then go into, how can I reverse this change?
Right.
So how can I get my old job back? How can I get my old girlfriend back?
Yeah, my old life back.
Has it ever worked? Really? Like
barely.
I probably, you know, had a couple of you know, Liz Taylor remarried Richard Burton again or something. It probably didn't work out. The point, it didn't. I, on a couple of occasions, have gotten back together with the old girlfriend, or it never lasts. It never works. It's just more, it's taking this thing and just feeding it a little bit and keeping it on life support for another 3 months, and then it dies out, and then you have to remourn it and reboot. So change. Yes.
A quote I heard about that actually really put it into perspective is, you know, when people say one door closes, another opens. The quote I heard that I like is, people say when one door closes, another door opens, but what they don't tell you is the hallway is hell.
Right.
So you keep trying to run back to that old door.
They go, right. What they should say is, when one door closes, another one opens 6 to 26 months later.
Yeah.
There it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So
everything will be closed for a while.
Yeah.
Yes. You don't have one door close and meet the love of your life the following afternoon.
Rarely, if ever.
You meet them 9 months later, and that 9 months, you're staring at a closed door.
Right.
So change. So I was starting to think about, you know, philosophical. I was talking to Anthony Cardy's my book publisher, and we'll play a clip from the audiobook. But I was talking to him about, like, well, what's going on in the book publishing world? How's this affecting things for you? And he said, well, you know, most of my authors are also speakers, and they're all out on the trails, so to speak. And everyone knows what a grind the road is. You know, it's all flights, it's bad airports, it's bad planes, it's everything's econoboxy, and you're running around and blah, 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 spreading disease and whatnot. But he said, you know, consequently, a lot of them are getting into this like digital, virtual lecturing. And that's not really Michael Jackson hologram shit, but it's like, you know, I don't need to fly to Battle Creek, Michigan to address this group. I can do it from a studio in Sherman Oaks.
Yeah,
and
we're all learning.
They can all join on their computer. And it's like, yeah, why do you need to be there? I mean, we did learn that in business, I grew up my whole life watching guys going, I got a business meeting in Tokyo, or I got a business meeting in Tacoma. I got to go, briefcase out the door. The daughter was waiting for dad to come back. The cab would pull up in front, that kind of thing. And I was kind of thinking, why do you need to go sit across a mahogany table and look a man in the eye, shake his hand? Like, well, you could agree on things in other modalities.
Right.
And I think we kind of figured that out with business, because now we're having conference calls and telecommunications. But if some good could come of this, maybe we could thin the herd out a little. Maybe the airports wouldn't need to be as crowded. Maybe folks could do their lecturing. And by the way, maybe you could deliver a lecture to Tacoma and then 2 hours later do your Tokyo lecture from the same studio.
Yeah.
Why? Because why do we now then because the way we work now is you got to get on a plane after doing the one and go to the next, and there's going to be 2 days. There's a time change, or the time difference, or whatever. So I started thinking, like, what are some good things? And I think we're going to learn a lot about the way we communicate, what we'll tolerate in terms of how we communicate, and if anything at all comes of it, just opening up college, just thinking, okay, it's funny. I was hearing a story about, I think it was Ice Cube, Max Patty. You can look up Ice Cube, and Ice Cube grew up in like South Central. I think Crenshaw High was his high school, but that was like a Crip and a Blood school. And I think they've improved things. I think it's Crips, Bloods, and Mexican lowriders now. So I think they've actually diversified.
MS-13 has come in. Yeah.
Yeah. So give the devil their due. They're welcoming in now other diverse gangs. But he got on a bus, and you got a picture, if anyone pictures South Central in a bus, and ended up going to school in like Granada Hills or Reseda something. His parents put him on a bus. That bus ride had to be an hour and 20 minutes every day.
That's a haul.
Direction. That's a haul. And if your first class is 8:05, you better be on that bus at 6:30 every single day. But his parents did not want him going to the school that had 0% proficiency in math tests. Their parents, Ice Cube's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Cube, Eunice,
Cubes,
Eunice and Theodore Cube. They wanted their little son to go to a school so he could get educated. I think it worked out for him.
He did all right.
Well, it's kind of interesting. He got sort of the street cred and a little of the business acumen. And it just kind of melded it into one Reese's peanut butter cup. But now you think about all these schools, and I'm always kind of talking about vouchers, and Kamala Harris was talking about busing. Everyone's talking about busing, and they're like, busing is great, but it's not if you have to get picked up at 6:30 every morning. Your mom has to get up at 5:45 and get you ready, or whatever it is. Well, what if young Ice Cube in South Central had access to a world-class high school via the computer?
Yeah.
I mean, what about, it's like Harvard Westlake is great, but it's $50,000 a year or $37,000 a year, and it's not accessible to the young cubes in the inner city. But what if Harvard Westlake made themselves accessible via this?
How many more ice cubes would we have in our life? We'd be taking an ice bath every day.
That's right. That's right.
What are you trying to say?
No, I mean, maybe that'll come of this. I mean, and also, furthermore, just think about the concept of every single neighborhood has to have some huge facility for everyone to show up to.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you need janitors, and you need security, and you need faculty, and you need maintenance, and it's like a giant building where everyone shows up. What if you could take, and we're always talking about classroom overcrowding. What if we could take, what if we took 20% of those people? Now, obviously, if you got a single mom, she's working 3 jobs, and you're 11, you can't sit home all day. But what if you could? Or
Yeah.
what would the cost be? I mean, what about just off-site? I'm spitballing here, but what if there was a nice, safe, secure place that 25 of Ice Cube and his buddies could show up to with a supervisor
satellite school
there and get all the curriculum of Harvard Westlake piped into that or whatever? Wouldn't that be a good thing?
A learning center or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
A good fallout of this whole thing, like you're talking about, might be like a reevaluation of these centuries old institutions. You know, like you said, the brick and mortar, it can open it up to a whole new generation, a demographic. People who never thought, such and such Harvard Westlake, for example, a really good school out here was possible.
Well, think about if you think about what is in the way. So Harvard Westlake, we keep bringing them up because it's Bryan coached there, and it's a nice
great
school.
Football program. Great, well-coached football program.
A friend named Rudy go there, who's featured in an episode of Hoarders. So maybe it doesn't always work out, but that was a shining beacon on the hill, literally, of what a high school could be. As the crow flies, that facility is 9 miles away, maybe 7 miles away from Sun Valley High School, which is a horrible high school. And I played my home games there with the Sun Valley Falcons. It's literally 6.2 miles away if you just went in a straight line. Why does this one place get to have all the good information and the other place doesn't? And then they go, well, how are you going to find good teachers who want to go into that place? That place is dangerous. You know what I mean? Like, no, they don't. You would not want to be a young lady who wanted to change the world and show up at Sun Valley High School. That might be a little dangerous for you. So, maybe we could do this. And
it's like you say, businesses aren't nice or mean or whatever. They want to make money. And my first thought was, ooh, how would that get in the way of this? And my answer was not at all. You charge for this, or you can charge for this, upgrade or whatever it is. There's no reason not to do this. If anything, they'll get more income and have to provide less product.
Yeah. Well, if you go, okay, what's it cost to educate a child? LA Unified, $9,000 a person. Okay. Now we have a number, or 7,500, or in some places it's 16,000 or whatever it is, but we have a number.
Right.
It's this much per student. Hey, Harvard Westlake, do you think you could beat $9,000? The answer is absolutely. They could do it for $1,500 a kid a year and still probably turn a profit if it was all the technology.
Right.
All right. Dr. Drew is, let's see. He graduated from Taft High in Woodland Hills. Yes, that's a good high school. I think, God, I'm trying to think. It wasn't John Elway. He went to Granada Hills, but there's been some famous baseball players that went to Taft. Famous pitcher, I think.
Wasn't it Mousakis when he was on the Royals? Because I remember he was from the West Valley.
Somebody will look it up. I can't recall. There's even a more famous pitcher, I think, that went to Taft, but we'll figure it out. Is Dr. Drew there, Max Pata?
Yeah, he should be. I just let him in. I'm trying to get him to activate his audio here.
Okay. I wanted to, Chris dutifully went after Drew to try to figure out this whole HIPAA thing and how come I can't find out how old anyone is. And I'll tell you why it's bothering me. It bothers me on a few reasons. The whole thing about news is you got to be specific. I don't want to hear there was a plane crash and between 8 and 800 people died. I want a number. You know what I mean? And every single time you go, a new person was claimed by coronavirus and they were over 50 or over 60 or over 65, which that's all I've heard. I go, I want to know how old they are. Yeah. Maybe I'm a weirdo, but it feels like the opposite of news to be like, is over this amount. And I keep saying to people, we're not using their name. So what's the difference? And I was saying to Max Zapata, who brought up a good point when we were talking earlier today, although first I'll bring up my good point, which is it's not the same as HIPAA, but when some celebrity goes on Howard Stern and they're like, oh, my friend used to fuck Donald Trump back in the day. And Howard goes, who is this person? They go, I can't say their name. I can't say it. All right, well, that person doesn't get into trouble for saying their friend fuck. They get in trouble if they say their name.
Right.
And Max Patty, you had an example.
Yeah, well, my example was how they allow 911 calls to be released willy-nilly, but yeah, you can't release the age of a person.
So now Drew is on. I've gone back and forth with Dr. Spaz. I've talked to you about it. I've talked to everyone I can talk about it. I know there's such a thing as HIPAA laws. Why can't we get the exact age of these people if we don't say their name?
Well, let me get hooked up here. Just called in. There we are. Okay, we can. That you'll notice that some people you are doing that, right?
I got a 34-year-old. I got a 34-year-old. That age I got.
Yeah.
I got a 17-year-old who turned out not to be corona.
They walk that back.
Right, but that's the only
of
numbers
course
I got.
Well, when I remember, I looked at the data when we were about 150 deaths in Los Angeles, and they gave about 70% of the ages then. And I was, at that point, stunned how many people were over the age of 85. There was a lot of that. And pretty much everybody except maybe a half a dozen were over the age of 60. So it's exactly what you expect it to be. It's people that are in risk categories, and that's that. Why some people don't release the data and some people do? It must have something to do with the liability of the press, not HIPAA, not freedom of information, because all those things are designed. HIPAA stops at demise, at death, and the other information laws.
Oh,
are
hold
really
on.
designed.
Repeat that. HIPAA stops
My
after you
understanding
die?
is, yeah, I don't believe HIPAA goes on after death. I don't believe so, because you have a death certificate, and that should be public information, right?
Oh,
Just like
well,
there's a
would've
birth
been nice if
certificate. There's
someone
a death.
piped up with this fucking info 2 years ago for me. I've ruined half
Well,
my adult life. So
but
you're
I
saying,
think
well, this is interesting. So you are somebody's physician and you cannot release information on them, but after they expire, we're going to get a time, a death, an age, and everything, right? Right.
Right.
So the HIPAA stops.
That's a public. HIPAA people are. It doesn't really stop, but people don't abide by it quite the same way. You'll notice that people, after somebody dies, you'll hear things about the cause of death. You'll hear what happened, because that becomes a public record at that point. Physicians are not comfortable giving a bunch of information. We don't like to do that. We like to maintain people's privacy. And I think mostly what's driving you crazy is the press doesn't want to incur any liability. So they're being extremely circumspect with any information they give out.
That's not what's driving me.
On.
That's not what's driving me crazy. I'll explain what's driving me crazy in a second.
Okay.
But Max Zapata, or Brian, or anyone who has a computer over there, I'm scared to touch mine. So
Don't touch yours.
I don't even look at porn on it anymore. It's fucking
dark days, man.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. So there's 13 dead as we record this in LA County. Other than the 34-year-old, everyone else I've looked up, their age just says over 60 or over 65. I don't have any exact ages. It's not a 70-30 split. I can't get anybody's age. And what's driving me nuts is not, although I don't like the litigious world we're living in, I suspect that the press is hyping the fear factor, which
of course.
Okay, and I think they think that's good. It's like, oh, do your job, get people to stay at home. Which
let me though tell you something. There is a 50-year period after somebody dies where a quote personal representative of the descendant can exercise the rights under HIPAA. So that's probably what's happening here, is that the press is doing a lot of checking with family and personal representatives and that kind of stuff. And if there's any discomfort at all with releasing any information, I'm sure they just go, okay, forget it.
But
I think that's what's happening.
But we have one age, and that's 34. The other 12, we don't. Wouldn't it stand to reason that we'd have some other ages in whoever? Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
Gary just gave us an interesting piece of information, which I assume he got from a news article. It says officials did not disclose any information about the people who died because they said that in some cases the family members were still being notified, which is interesting.
Oh, that's another reason.
And by the way, it says up to 21. Jesus Christ, 21 deaths now in LA County.
Why is that a lot?
Because it was 48 hours ago.
It was 13.
Oh, no.
Well, no, whenever Adam brought it up, what Monday show or whatever it was, I don't remember.
That is we're doing amazing. You've got to put the numbers in context. Remember, 30,000 flu deaths we have. And so to keep the deaths here down below 20, it's remarkable. If we get up even around 100, we will be doing great. This is an outbreak. This is not a zero, not nobody going to die. People are going to get sick and die of this thing no matter what we do. But if we keep it low, that's amazing. And, if we keep it under 1,000 even compared to flu, which is, again, 30,000, we're doing good. You've got to assess these things in context of medical reality. You can't save everybody with this condition. You can't prevent transmission to everybody. I wish we could. We can't. We just can't. We got to mitigate. That's the word you keep hearing.
Well, I say if one person dies, it's too many. Okay, Drew?
Right.
And I'm going to, by the way, when the coronavirus is over, I'm going to extend that to everything. If anyone dies in a moped accident, if anyone is strangling themselves while masturbating, if anybody dies in a dirigible accident or free diving, or it just expires in their sleep, I will deem it unacceptable. Unacceptable. How about that, Drew?
Zero tolerance for death.
Well, that's what Adam said. Adam said no traffic deaths. So we are going to lobby Sacramento to reduce the speed limit to 5 miles per hour.
Finally.
Thank God.
All right. So there's 21 dead in LA County, but again, we have 10 million people, so that's not too shabby. And also, I know Gary's being helpful in saying a lot of people that want to notify the family. I get that. They do that with everything all the time. They go, there's a fire in the house. We're not going to tell you who it was until we notify the family. But then 2 days goes by and they notified the family. I'm saying this stuff is not coming out. The guy who died, who is older than 60 or described as older than 60, that guy died a month ago. Why? They've notified the family. Why are we not aware of this?
Well, and just to give my micro insight, just, from working at a news station, when the stuff that we're reporting, like when we're talking about LA County, it's almost always coming from, and Dr. Drew, you might know her, Dr. Barbara Ferrer, the LA County.
Well, I know her. I know of her, and now I feel like I know her because I see her on the press conferences every
we all
day.
do, for sure. So it's in terms of, the press, I can only speak for, my little corner, but that's where we're getting our information. And if they say 70 years old, 71 years old, or above 60, that's where a lot of that information is coming from, because we do the press.
But Adam's point is they rushed breathlessly to tell you about a 17-year-old. They rushed to tell you about a 38-year-old. And then you can't get the information about anybody over 60.
Right.
And that is concerning. I mean, from the beginning of this thing, we have to manage our emotions. We have to manage the panic. It's not helping. It's not helping to be panicked. Right now, I don't know where we're going to be. Mayor Garcetti yesterday said in 6 days, we're going to be where New York is. So let's have a conversation on Wednesday. That's Wednesday. And let's see if we are at 35,000 cases. I'm going to say there's about a zero probability of that, I would say, because we are doing a great job here, and we should pat ourselves on the back. We're being diligent. We're being careful. We're doing a great job, and we are gonna curtail. We're gonna mitigate because of that.
Well, and we're a giant city, but you think of Italy and you think of New York, we're not packed together. Our city isn't laid out that way. So is anyone taking that into consideration?
No,
me.
No, they just closed they just closed the fucking horse trail behind my house. It's like the only joy I had was taking a fucking walk with my dog.
Watch out, Adam's
I'm going
go wild.
I'm going under. I'm going full fucking Kool-Aid. I'm going full Kool-Aid. I'm going to hit that trail. Oh, yeah. Spittle flying from my mouth. Oh, yeah. All right, Drew. Let me give you let's give Drew a plug. I'll get rid of you.
All right, thanks.
Let's see. Yeah. Oh, the Adam and Drew Show. Well, there you go. That's a podcast, the Dr. Drew podcast, and Dr. Drew After Dark as well. And hit up his website, drdrew.com. Thanks, Drew.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate
it. Let's talk on Wednesday and see where we are. Tuesday.
Okay. I'm bracing myself for the worst. All right. Look, there's a fundamental problem going on in this country, and I'll explain it, I don't know, on Monday's show. Let me hit Simply Safe home security. 2 ways you can protect your home the traditional way. Wait a few weeks for technicians to come out. Well, forget about that now. That ain't going to happen. Spend a small fortune, or you can go with Simply Safe. Simply Safe, everything you need in home security. Award-winning protection, 2-time winner, the CNET Editor's Choice Award. Blankets your home and safety. You barely notice it's there. Set it up all by yourself. Very easy to do. up and running in about a half hour. Peel and stick. The components are all real small. You won't even see them. And the batteries last up to 10 years. No drilling, no pulling wires. An army of highly trained security experts ready to dispatch the police to your home at a moment's notice, 24/7. It's Simply Safe, right, Dawson?
See why The Verge calls Simply Safe the best home security system. Check it out today at simplysafe.com/Adam. Get free shipping and a 60-day risk-free trial at simplysafe.com/Adam. Simplysafe.com/Adam.
All right, Tom Segura is going to join us in a couple of moments. Tom, I ran into outside of the Comedy Store. God, feels like a
Their lifetime.
a lifetime away. Like I was just walking out of a super crowded Comedy Store. There was Tom standing in back of the Comedy Store. We started chatting about cars. Next thing you know, I was inviting him on the show. And also, if anything comes of this too, there was a lot of, I think everyone has to deal with this. You know, it's like, come on the show. Where are you guys? You're in Glendale. Where are you? I'm in the Palisades. What time are you doing the show? I'll never make it. You know, a lot of that. Sort of realize, do it this way.
Everyone's gettable now.
It's very doable, yeah.
It's pretty doable. It's pretty satisfying. And there's not a lot of excuses for not being able to do it because everyone's home and they have their smartphone on them. So we'll bring up the great Tom Segura. I watched his stand-up special. Super funny. He's got a really cool style. Like it's very conversational and it's a storytelling with a lot of good jokes in there as well. It's available, by the way, on Netflix as we speak. And we'll talk to him in just one second. First, real quick, Simply Safe home security. 2 eyes in there, simplysafe.com/Adam. Get that, protect your family. All right, quick break and back with stand-up comedian Tom Segura right after this.
It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Hey, Adam, this is Scott from Moreland, Georgia. Hey, man, I just want to let you know that Taboo 2 is on Pornhub. Hey, man, check it out. Get it on.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Done and done. Tom Segura is on with us. Stand-up special, Ball Hogs, available on Netflix right now. It's his 4th special, filmed in at the Moody Theater in Austin, Texas. Very funny stand-up special we'll get into in a second, and also the podcast, I should say. Your Mom's House. It's new episodes every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. Good to talk to you, Tom.
Hey, good to be here with you, Adam. Thanks for having me, man.
Great job on the stand-up special. I watched it last night.
Thank you.
I was curious as I was watching it. You talk a lot of shit about your wife and kids, and I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I talk shit about your wife and kids during my stand-up as well.
Of course. She's a real asshole.
but I thought, how much of this is true? I know it sounds like a dumb question, but when you're forming a joke, something had to have happened that was that in order to start the joke, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like the first thing I say, I mean, you know, you always exaggerate things, of course, but like, you know, the reason I even bring up the fact that I'm leaving my wife and kids is because, you know, she's given me a bunch of shit for it before, you know? So it's like, she has, you know, she doesn't like weep like I say she does, but she has been like, you know, how long are you going to be doing this? And like, you're gone all the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm out here like making a living. And then yes. I have to exaggerate. Like I make it seem like I'm having nothing but fun and that I don't miss them. But of course I do, you know?
No, it is. No, that's the beginning of the thing. And Tom's not leaving his wife. He's leaving to get on an airplane to do a show. That's not in the state that his wife lives in. But it is funny. I think almost every guy has to do that. I'm miserable when I'm away from you.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's like, oh, the bachelor party sucked. The strippers were fat. The one chick could barely fucking blow her way out of a Chuck E. Cheese. Like you're always doing this thing where it's like, I'm not having any fun. It's all work. But
of course.
Hey, there's some drinks and some fun afterward, right?
I mean, also it's like, especially when they're young, right? Because when they're young, you know what a drag it is. Like my wife's a comic too, so she'll leave and she, she'll do the road. I'll be at home. When they're super small, you know what a drain it is. But the difference is this. I think as a guy, you just are so used to like, oh, it's that person's turn to like do their thing.
Right.
I just go like, this is it. This is what it is for these next 48 hours. I think like women will be like, hey man, I need you to check in more, acknowledge what I'm going through here alone. And I go like, all right. I mean, that's part of like learning to be a better husband, I guess.
It's funny. I had this sad but very real conversation with my son 2 days ago. We're walking along the horse trail behind my house when it was legal to do so.
Back in halcyon days.
Yes. And he was explaining to me something, and we were talking about the time he got lost. And we were up in the Pacific Northwest, and they were on some hiking trail outside of Portland or something. And my son, who was about 11 at the time, said, I'm going down this way. I'll meet you at the bottom. And my wife said, okay, we'll meet at the bottom. And then she proceeded to worry that he'd been abducted or lost or fell into an active volcano or something for the next hour. And then when we got to the bottom of the hill, she started screaming at him like, don't you ever do that again. And his thing was, I just did what we agreed upon. You shouldn't be upset. And he said, is it fair that they get to do that? I mean, that they essentially, they get to blame us for stuff they agreed upon. And I said, no, but this is the arrangement you need to have with women. Understand, you think you're playing a chess game, but at any point they could just knock over all the pieces, grab your king and eat it and go, I've won. And you have to agree to that in principle. Otherwise, it's never going to work.
That should be in the vows. And
I said to him too, but you know what? This is why your mom loves you more than me. This is why she hugs you more than me. These special powers to ignore evidence, the obvious, and gravity also give her the powers to nurture.
Yeah.
So you got win-win. You got me and her.
And how old is your boy? How old is he?
He's 13 now.
And didn't Natalia lose it too? He has twins, a boy and a girl.
Yes, everyone lost it, thinking Sonny was claimed by nature.
And that board game example is fantastic. When my wife Christy, who's then dating, this was 11, 12 years ago, we were playing Scrabble on my then apartment bed, and the game wasn't going well for her, so she upended the game, and it's been legendary ever since.
Good table flip.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember like it's like 6 weeks ago or something. My wife was playing New York, and she was there, and it was like Friday night. She hadn't like really checked in, and I was like, "Yeah, I mean, you're in New York. You're probably out." And then the next day, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I was like, "Why?" She was like, "Well, after the show, I went out with my friends." I was like, "Yeah, I assumed you would." So, like, I'm not stressed. I'm not bothered by it. I'm just assuming that if you're out in New York after shows, you're out having fun, and I'm not bothered by it. Like, that's what I think you should be doing.
Was she bothered that you weren't bothered?
No, she was like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm really sorry." I was like, "Don't worry about it." Like,
yeah, there's a total and utter context. It's like you're doing 2 shows a night. There's a 3-hour time difference. Sometimes there's that window in between shows where you're signing or taking pictures or shaking hands or whatever it is. And if you don't catch that window, then it's too late, after the second show or whatever. And the wives treat it like you said, I'm going to go in the backyard for a second, and never came home. That's the way they're treating it, but we treat it a different way. We have a context for it. Yes. Sorry, Gina. All right, Tom, let's talk about you. The stand-up special is awesome, and it's on Netflix as we speak. And it's a very interesting style that Tom has, because it's very conversational, but it's not long format. It's just conversational with jokes peppered in, but also with a certain kind of ease about it. And I don't know how long it takes you to get that easy on stage, or were you kind of always that way? Did you just have that ease on stage?
I mean, I think a little bit of it, but I think I've been doing it 18 years. So I think for like, I think that's where I wanted to be like that. I think I used to be like a little more deliberate and methodical, and then the longer you do it, you kind of drift into like your comfort space. So I think I figured out how to do what I wanted to do after a long time. I think it took a while though.
Yeah. I don't know that there's any fast tracking that experience.
You probably get asked all the time. Like I get asked all the time. People are like, "Hey, what should I do?" And I'm like, "Dude, like," they're like, I want to do stand up. I want to be doing this club. And I'm like, man, just get on stage a lot. Stop making this complicated.
Yeah. I had a conversation with a guy today who wanted to talk about podcasting or stand up and that whole thing. And I just said, well, I started thinking about a restaurant analogy. I said, the first thing you need to do is make sure the fucking restaurant is open every day at 8 a.m. and closes after dinner. Like, first thing you have to be is open. Right. Meaning, if you want to do a podcast, first thing you have to do is consistently do a podcast. And, or if you want to be a stand-up, the first thing you need to do is consistently do stand-up. So, and everyone's like, how do you become a Michelin-rated chef? It's like, make sure the restaurant's open every day. Then we can start worrying about the food, like the cuisine, like the quality of the food, Yeah. The first thing, let's just get the fucking doors open.
Yes.
Everyone wants to talk about the dessert. They don't want to talk about opening the doors every morning, like showing up at 7, opening the doors, sweeping the sidewalk off, putting out the tablecloth. They don't want to talk about it.
No. And my favorite is I meet people, I'm sure you've met people, they go, dude, I have all this material. And I'm like, what? They're like, I have like 45 minutes of material written. I just haven't done it yet. I was like, oh, okay. Well, let's see how long it is once you get up there.
The whole menu is right up here in the brain.
Yeah.
Right.
I have a 12-course menu planned out. I just haven't cooked it yet. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'd be like me pointing at a pile of lumber and going, I have a house. Exactly. Just haven't put it together yet.
Could you come over and give me a hand? Or just take a minute.
Just to keep going. So what do you think you're going to do when you're in high school? What is Tom Segura thinking about? Is he thinking about stand-up in high school? Is he thinking about sports in high school? Are you thinking about following in dad's footsteps, whatever those are? What's the plan when you're 17 and a half?
Oh, at 17 and a half, I really thought I could be like a comedic actor. I really thought.
Okay, you're thinking about it.
I thought I would be like pretty much in movies or on television in comedy roles. And I thought it was like, I was like, this will definitely come together. This makes a lot of sense.
Were you in drama club and that kind of stuff?
I was not in drama club. I did do an improv like show with people when I was 14. And then we did, and then it became like a sketch show, and I did it for like one summer. The drama people at our school found out about it, and they were like, oh, you should do this play. And I was like, it's during football season. And the drama guy goes, why don't you just quit football this year and just do a play? And I was like, are you out of your fucking mind that I'm going to quit the football team to do a play? Like, not only do I not want to, I will get murdered at school. Like that cannot happen. So then when I went to college, I did communications, and I had like a video radio track, and I would do all the assignments for video. Everybody would deliver like kind of like news pieces, and I would do comedy videos, basically, like turning comedy videos. And then when I moved to LA, I still thought that I would do the acting route, and I went to the Groundlings, and I was like, oh, I'll do the Groundlings, and then I'll do SNL, and then it'll kind of just move along like that. And then, just ended up finding stand-up, and everything just changed.
Did you have people in your life, either your immediate family, counselors, teachers, coaches, people like that were encouraging you along the way? I mean, I know what you talk about. Your mom's Peruvian.
Yeah, she's Peruvian, yeah.
And maybe culturally and very religious, or at least as you talk about in the stand-up special, probably not a great connoisseur of sketch and improvisational comedy. But where was your dad? Where was your mom? Now there's a version of this where they just go, you're the greatest and you can do anything you want, which is like a kind of a crescent wrench. Like it'll adjust to any size. You can go in any direction. But was there anyone going, Tom, you're funny, you should be pursuing this?
Yeah, there were some people doing that, like here and there, like a teacher I remember a couple of teachers in high school were like that. One in college who was like, don't take acting classes because I think they'll ruin what you have. I remember her telling me that. And then my parents were pretty supportive. My dad was really supportive. And he was like, look, you should go for this stuff. He told me a story that when he was, he obviously from a different era, that he told his father when he was like 20 something, that he wanted to be a PE teacher. Like, he's like, I want to teach like PE. My dad was an Olympic weightlifter and like, he loved sports and and he was like, I want to teach PE. And he said that his dad just turned to him and was like, no son of mine will be a PE teacher. And then that was the end of that. He was like, we just never, he was like, you just took that as law. And I was like, oh, okay. So he goes, if you want to pursue this comedy thing, I think you should. He was like very encouraging. And so my mother was always like, my mother really told me to get a job at the post office. And she was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? So yeah, two very different perspectives.
What did your dad end up doing as a profession?
He ended up being a financial advisor.
Well, maybe
he liked it.
Something.
I think he liked it. Yeah, he liked it.
He fell back on that.
He fell back on that. He did well with it, but I guess, he really wanted to do I think he wanted to be a high school football coach, man. That's what he really wanted to do,
Best and the brightest.
Yeah.
But
I coached high school football.
Oh, you did?
Right. He's making a joke about
years.
himself.
Yeah.
I had this, and Tom, you played football. How many years did you play football?
I played from 4th grade through high school.
And what did you get out of it?
I mean, honestly, the thing when I look back on it as like an older man now, I look back on it, the best part about playing sports in that age range was the camaraderie, like the friendships, the fun of that, and being competitive, having to work to do it. But the best part was like hanging out with teammates.
Do you feel like you use some of that? Football's tough. Practice is tough, two-a-days and all that kind of wind sprints and everything. Do you feel like you fall back on that now in your adult life, different profession, but having to go on the road early mornings, two shows a night, that kind of stuff?
Oh, I think the work ethic of sports definitely applies. I mean, I think, I would work probably every weekend if I didn't have a family and kind of people being like, that's too much. So I think that it definitely established that you go to work and you don't really, it's not a problem. I try to do as much as I can and I try to work all the time in every aspect. And I think I got that from sports. I think my dad, was definitely that type where he got up every day and you work unless you're incapable of doing it.
Well, you said he was an Olympic weightlifter.
He was a competitive in Olympic weightlift. So he started as a teen and he was a 2-time state champion. He was a Marine in Vietnam. So he he's kind of a barbarian on paper.
Just the kind of guy you'd want to wake up in cold sweats in the middle of the night after hearing helicopter blades running through the house. I mean, was there any of that going on?
Dude, the funniest thing about him with Nam stuff is when we were kids, he would downplay it all the time. Because as a kid, you're like, you were in a war? And he would be like, yeah. And not, he was a lieutenant. He led a platoon of men and he just wouldn't really, he was like, yeah, it was, tell you real basic stuff. And then every 5 years, the stories would come out a little more. Because when you're a kid, you're like, hey, so did you ever shoot anybody? He's like, nah, other guys did that. I was like, oh. And then the first time was probably 6-7 years ago when he was just telling a story. He's like, when you throw a grenade into a bunker. And I was like, wait, what? And then last week he was like, a 50 millimeter will really, doesn't matter where you hit someone, they're going to die. And I was like, okay. So now he tells these stories all the time of just crazy, crazy shit.
Yeah, I loved loved hearing that story. That was in one of your stand-up specials, right?
Yeah.
That story of your dad.
In Disgraceful, yeah. I told the
Yes.
story, yes. But he really, I mean, you know, he tells those stories. Then he tells like really somber stuff, and like he actually opened up. Like for 30 some years, he would just be like, "No, yeah, not really. It was fine." Like didn't tell you anything. And then now he told me like just like terrible shit. And then he also brings it up at random moments. Like I could be with him. We stopped to put gas in the car, and he'll just lean out of the window. He's like, "Did I ever tell you about the time one of the guys next to me stepped on a mine?" I'm like, "No." I'm like putting gas in the car, and he's like, "Oh yeah, his torso blew out." I'm like, "Dad, just wait till I get in the car. Hold on."
Well, it's very interesting because the relationship we have with our kids is so much different than anybody had with their parents growing up, right? So, and I think I speak for all of us who are a parent one way, shape, or form, some a little older, some a little younger, but the relationship I have with my kids is a little peer to peer and a little less parent to kid,
Yeah.
And when we grew up, first off, my friends' dad's first names, I didn't even know what their fucking first names were. That's Mr. Vendig and that's Mr. Truex over
First
there.
name
I
was
have no
Mr.
first name is Mr. I have no fucking idea. I have no insights onto what this guy, I don't know what his favorite cheese is. I don't even know what his team is. He likes to golf because I've seen golf clubs at his house.
For sure.
That's all I know. That's all I know. He drives an Impala. That's all I know. This notion, and I didn't know, I didn't know a lot about my dad. I don't know if he knew a lot about what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like he didn't know what I was, my dad had no idea what I was up to 96% of the time. And now my son and my daughter, it's a completely different relationship.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe a little mystery is good. Maybe we're getting maybe the book is a little too open.
It is an interesting shift when you think about us, our kids, our parents, their parents, just in that window of like 100 years.
Right.
The way that each of those relationships, I mean, my kids are pretty young, but yeah, I mean, obviously we all now have that thing about like check in and really, really understand, empathize with someone, how they're feeling and try to, like, things that like, I think our parents didn't have the tools of, and things that their parents, there is no way. Like my dad told me that he was going to go on spring break his junior year of college and go to, I think like Myrtle Beach. And so he was with his dad and he goes, "Oh yeah, I'm going to go to Myrtle Beach for spring break." And he goes, "My dad just said, I wish you wouldn't do that." And then he goes, and that was the end of the conversation. That meant,
right,
don't do it.
Oh.
And then I just didn't do it. And it didn't go like, "But I want to fucking go, man." Like he was like, "You just go, oh, I didn't."
Simpler times.
Yeah.
No, my daughter needs the answer to be a thumbs up to some event. So she'll ask me, and if I say no, she'll go, "Fine, I'll just find someone else to sign off on this." And then she'll go upstairs and get mom or get a stranger. It doesn't matter. She'll just go she'll go get the answer she needs to do it. Yeah, like back in the day, the dad would just blow cigar smoke into the kid's face and just went, "No." And that was
one blow for yes, two blows for no.
Yeah, well, it's like how we know we have a new pope. When the dad blows the smoke ring and you're one ring in the face.
White smoke.
White or black smoke.
Yeah, there was no negotiating. It was just that was it. Your dad probably wanted to go to spring break in Myrtle Beach just to fucking have an excuse to take his shirt off, though, right? He was so jacked all the time.
Probably, yeah. I mean, he said there was. And then I think about like the ways, but I have two sisters. The way my sisters would battle with my, like, I don't know. I think I just had like the more innate respect for them, but they would just throw tantrums and fucking curse and just go crazy about anything they wanted. And I was like, how do you not hit them? Like these chicks are so fucking insane.
They knock over the Scrabble board.
Jesus. I mean, it's just unreal, man.
Hey, Tom, I'm interested in your process because I know that sounds a little inside the actor studio, but you know, so much of your material, and when I hear you talk now, comes from a observation of the human condition, like a psychological thing, you know. And people ask me sometimes what I do, and I go, well, I just study things from more like a therapist, and then I put a little joke at the end, but I'm mostly just looking for sort of truths in life as I see them, and sort of the human condition, not a little different than going up there and just telling jokes like Stephen Wright, which we all love, but your process is different. How much of you is comedian, and then how much of you is sort of psychologist or sociologist?
Oh, that's interesting, man. I mean, I think I'm more into that. It's a good observation on your part, because I feel like, you know, that is what like piques my interest, is to make the observation, think about it, talk about it, and worry about the joke will come. So I just try to I feel like if you can present it in an interesting way, like a lot of times it'll be a story and I go, but what's the way into the story? If I figure out the way into the story, then the story becomes inherently more interesting. So I think about that a lot. Like, it's not just the story is funny in and of itself, but why are you telling it? And so I spend like a lot of time thinking about, you know, what's the purpose of the story? So I think about it in that sense a lot.
Do you have an interest in psychology, sort of the human condition?
I do.
And what motivates people, or how they process things?
I feel like I can talk about that and study it to no end. I mean, I've countless books on psychology, you know, different DSM behavioral conditions, and I mean, it's just, I read the magazines, the books, I have conversations about it. I'm just fascinated by people. So why people behave. So it's like the documentaries I like to watch. I love all that stuff, man. People are fascinating. And I especially have an added interest into inappropriate behavior and people who are just on the outskirts a little bit, you know? So that's what I love. I mean, I think that's why we all kind of have that. There's a reason, you know, that Tiger King is #1 on Netflix, right?
Stop talking about it. I got to watch it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because as somebody who's maybe from the same tribe as you are, when I was watching your stand-up special, I was like, this guy is into psychology. Like, this guy is very interested in the condition and what makes people tick and what motivates people. And I'm with you. I think there's some people that just travel through life and they see people exhibit a behavior and they go, oh, that's a good one. That guy's good. And then there's a bad one. And you go, that guy's bad. But they don't really want to examine the motivation for the behavior. And it's like, when I think I was at Caesars Palace or some big Vegas hotel several years ago, and we were doing Crank Yankers 15 years ago. And I got,
by the way. So
what's that?
Crank Yankers was so great.
Oh, thanks. Well, we're coming back. So hopefully we can get you on. So I got done working out. I went to the shower. I was walking out of the shower and there's a guy shaving and he was completely naked and he was standing in the whole bank of sinks. Like, they have 10 sinks, you know, 20 foot long, in front of the big mirror in the common area. He's completely nude. And he had 1 foot on the counter, 1 foot on the edge of the counter. The other foot was on the floor, and he was shaving into the mirror that way. And I thought, I have so many questions for this guy. Like, yes, I'm disgusted by this behavior, but also talk about the freedom. Yeah. How liberated is this guy? I'm like worried if the towel is up high enough when I come walking out of the steam room. This guy is balls to the wind. He inexplicably has 1 foot on top of the counter while he is shaving. I have a million questions.
You want a camera to follow that guy the rest of the day.
Yes.
Yeah, and be like, I want to know how do you handle all types of scenarios in life? Everything.
What's interesting psychologically is whether you're that guy or the example I use, the guy who puts the suitcase in sideways in the overhead storage. You think you're doing the right thing in your mind, unless you're a true psychopath. But you're like, what's wrong with this?
Does the guy who has his foot on the counter while shaving think he's doing the right thing?
Well, he
Or does
thinks
not
what's
care?
wrong. I'm sure he's like, well, what he's in his mindset is probably, what's wrong with this? Why
I don't
would
think
not?
I don't think he's distilled it down to that. I just think
Oh, really?
like, well, you have to think, well, Tom, you tell us. My argument is once that guy starts thinking about what he's doing, now we're on some sort of path to you putting both feet on the ground.
Right.
I don't know that he's thinking at all. I'm just thinking like, this is how I shave.
This is lizard brain.
Meaning I pick my nose, but I don't do it in a public crowded area. But this guy may, and he may not care.
May not care, and I think for sure doesn't care. I think somebody like that, what happens is their thing is, I am only concerned with me and my own needs. And so I'm not even giving thought to the idea that this might be inappropriate. It might disturb somebody. It might be unhygienic. It might be to somebody else that might not like it. Who cares though? This is how I do it. So
my assumption is you don't exist in their world.
Yeah.
But Bryan, I don't know.
We're saying the same thing. Like I said, maybe not think you're doing the right thing, but if you were to ask him, he would be like, yeah, this is how I shave. Like not thinking about it or not having a thought that, I'm getting away with something or I'm doing the wrong thing. Like, no, this is what I do.
I find it interesting that I feel like there's almost like two types of people. Because one of my best friends is the type of person that, like, to use your scenario, we could both be in that locker room, see that, and then you walk out and my friend had seen it but doesn't register to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And then I'd be like, did you see that guy? And he'd be like, yeah. And then you point out all this ridiculousness and the audacity of it and everything. And then he's like, oh yeah, I didn't really think of it. I'm like, how did that not occur to you that was
highly inappropriate?
Yeah. And like, that's how the world is like split up. People who go like, oh, I just didn't pick up on that really. And you're like,
I wonder, I don't want to sound like a pompous prick, but no offense to your friend, but I grew up with a lot of those guys, you know, and it's kind of a stupidity. Now, it doesn't mean they're stupid, but it's a kind of a stupidity. You could measure IQ a little bit because all the jack-off buddies I grew up with playing football in North Hollywood would just say to me all the time, I don't know. Who cares? What's the difference?
Move on.
And I go, I don't know. Isn't that interesting to you? Or why, what is the difference between a sofa and a couch? Or is there a difference? Or is it only regional? And they'd go, I don't know. Who gives a shit? But there were lower IQ guys, I would say, right?
And it's kind of like this thing that people don't like saying when you make points about like observations and liking something or disliking something or observing it. And you go like, yeah, but there is a certain level of intelligence associated with making that observation or wanting to have the conversation. And somebody, this guy is like, he's smart enough. He can take a test, but he's not, like he's not quick.
Well,
So,
how many times do you think Neil deGrasse Tyson has said in his life, gee, I never thought about that? Like he probably has thoughts on whether or not they're fully formed thoughts. He probably has thoughts on most things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And figures out the things that are worth, I mean, I'm sure also when you're that smart, you probably are making points all the time. And like what Adam's saying, everyone's just like, I don't know, dude, it's fucking space. Just shut up.
I always marvel at everyone's ability not to marvel at things, like not to ask follow-up questions. One of my biggest, it's almost an obsession, is like you throw things out to people, and you could sit next to someone on a flight and they could have no idea what you do, right?
Yeah.
And you could be flying in to go to Austin to do, I don't know, the theater you played, was it 1,200 seats, 1,500 seats? It was a nice size.
2,600, yeah.
26? Wow, big balcony. Sorry.
Out of the down rounder.
Sorry, it looked more intimate.
Austin City Limits, baby. Moody Theater, yeah.
it's sort of a little bit not in the round, but sort of in the crescent.
Yeah, you're
and it's got a hell of a balcony because it looked. It didn't look like you're playing a club. It looked like you're playing an intimate theater.
No, it's lit very dark for the special, but yeah, it's big.
It's what you want when you do a stand-up special. Anyway, you could sit next to someone on a plane. You could strike up a conversation in first class and go, "What are you doing in Austin?" And the guy could go, "I live in Austin. I'm just going home." And then he could go, "Where do you live?" And then you'd go, "I live in LA. And he'd go, "Oh, what are you doing in Austin?" And you'd go, "I'm shooting a stand-up special for Netflix." And he'd go, "There you go. Are you going to finish those honey roasted peanuts?" And it's like, why do you not have more questions? You just learned.
Yes.
Do you have to go to the bathroom? Because I'm about to take a nap.
Right. Yeah. Like I've told people a million times, I've had guys cutting my hair. They go, "You going anywhere this summer?" I go, "I'm going to Europe to do a car race." Well, there you go. You want the back round or square? Like, you have no follow-up questions on going to Europe and doing a car race.
Dude, you got to be like, I'm the most interesting person you've ever had in this chair. You're not going to ask anything else.
We're in a fucking sports clips in La Cañada.
Yeah. So do a lot of people tell you that? You get that a lot? Fucking
1 second, Mr. DeGrasse Tyson will be right with you.
Yeah. Right. You're sitting next to a guy on an airplane. He's just announced that he's going to your city to talk to 2,000 people, and there's no follow-up.
Yeah.
There's no about what.
I did have a guy, because also I avoid, a lot of times I lie and I make up stuff to avoid the in detail conversations.
Sure.
And, I'm just like, oh, I'd rather tell anybody anything. But I did tell the guy the truth, stand up. And he was like, "You do stand up?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "You don't have another job?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Just stand up?" And I go, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "And that's what you get, you make a living doing that."
Oh, man.
Like, "Yeah, man." And he was like, "Okay. But like, what do you do full time?" I'm like, it's the job. That's the job." He was like, "Stand up comedy." Like, he was completely incredulous. And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, okay.
I do like when it leads to somebody else in your profession. I like when they go, "What do you do?" "I do stand up." "Oh, yeah, George Carlin, man."
Yeah.
I had all that guy's albums, and then they go into a soliloquy about another stand up for 20 minutes, but they never ask you about yours. I don't know why it reminded me, but that's how people think. People have like a simplistic kind of thought pattern. When I used to do Kevin and Bean, K-Rock, after 30 years, they broke up. They're off the air now, blah, blah, blah. People listen to the podcast know the story. But I can remember like people going, "So you're doing Kevin and Bean in the morning?" Me and Jimmy Kimmel back in the day and everything. And I said, "Yeah." And I have people go, "What else do Kevin and Bean do? Like, they're done with work at 10 a.m., right? They work 6 to 10. And right. And then do they have job? What is their regular job? Like,
So
what
from
job do
11
they
to
do?"
7. Yeah.
Right. And because in their mind, it's like, okay, you're doing 4 hours a day. Let's say you get $19 an hour, or you know what? Fuck it. 25 an hour.
Go crazy.
It'll be easier. So you got $100 a day, but that's not going to pay the mortgage. I mean, what is the gig? Do they go to a Jiffy Lube afterward?
You're right. Kevin's a doctor and works at the docks, so that's what they do.
Right. Right. It's like I just realized that this person's brain, they couldn't digest your "all I do is work for 30 minutes a night or 50 minutes a night or whatever." Like, they couldn't. But who pays you during the day? It's like it's a sort of a, and also the person probably didn't recognize you. So if Jerry Lewis was sitting next to him, they probably could have processed that.
The other thing people do, I'm sure it's happened to you at some point, probably not now because they definitely know you, but like when you are like coming up, people will go, you realize that people just, people want familiarity. So whatever it is, they go like, "Well, what is it like? Like, what's this food like?" You're like, "Well, it's like chicken," right? Or like,
right.
Or they go, you're a stand-up, and or maybe they even see you do stand-up, and you're like, yeah. They're like, you know who you remind me of? They always go, you know who you remind me of?
Right.
Who? And then what they always do is they bring up somebody who's well-known who looks vaguely like you, and you're like, well, how do I remind you of them? And then they go, I don't know. You guys just seem like you're very similar. I'm like, no. So like for me, you know, like
It's got
12
a David
years
Tell
ago,
vibe.
they would
David
go,
Tell.
yeah, they would go Artie Lang, and I go, what? Artie Lang, and they're like, you remind me of him. I'm like, why? Because we're both fat, and they're like, basically they would say no, but I'm like, yeah, but that's why. And then when the Hangover movies come out, you know, when they came out, they would go, you remind me a lot of Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah.
Why? And they go, you guys are very similar. I'm like, no, we're not. And they're like, yeah, your stand-up reminds
In
me.
no
Like,
way.
nothing alike. But
He
it
plays a
makes the person-
Steinway in his.
Yeah. It makes the person feel like, okay, like I now go, you're like this, something I know, you know? It's
Yeah.
like very,
No, interesting. Interesting. The Human Condition with Tom Segura and Adam Carolla. It's very interesting. You're right, because when people say, "What does this taste like?" you don't go, "It tastes like alligator," because
Right.
people don't know what alligator
no
tastes like. They
reference.
go, "It tastes like chicken,"
Yeah.
and it is very interesting that our minds are constantly trying to kind of put things in order and make a sequence and build a little bridge. And it's interesting, even as a guy who played football, you'll understand, and Brian will as well, fresh cut grass. You smell fresh cut grass, you think about doing push-ups in the Pee-wee, Pop Warner, whatever, like you smell that grass. So what is your brain doing? It's like, well, you're old and you're walking your dog. Why does the fresh cut grass bring you back to 2-a-day football practice? Because your brain's trying to connect.
Yep.
It's trying to connect something all the time.
Well, and we all expect it. Think of any elevator pitch. Think of, just tell me, right? Okay, it's Scrooge meets Gone with the Wind. I mean, that's how people want. That's how they feel comfortable.
that is exactly, that just shows you too, because for people listening who like don't know about how, you know, Hollywood works, they're always telling you, look, when you get in the pitch, tell them 2 things they already are familiar. Like that is the key to it. You got to be like, it's Tommy Boy, meet fucking friends. So you have to tell them things they know so that they go, okay, I'm with you. And then you can go from there. But like, you have to give them this, you know.
2 familiar examples.
Familiar examples. Absolutely.
Yeah. You shouldn't do it with a new girlfriend, though. Like, you shouldn't be like, you know, your blowjob is very reminiscent of Connie, who is not, she was not the last girlfriend, but the one before that.
Oh, here, let me show you on
Suck
Facebook.
a dick. Yeah.
That real
It's almost exactly the same.
Yeah, let me get my phone. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. All right, Tom Segura's here. I think we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back and do the news with Gina Grad right after this.
News with Gina Grad, breaking viral, all those crazy Trump tweets. Give me news with Gina Grad, trouble in the Middle East, celebrity drunk meltdowns. Deep news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
So start off with things that just some follow-ups and things that aren't going to take you by major shock. But new jobs data released today as we record this shows the devastating effect of the coronavirus having on the labor market. Number of new unemployment filings skyrocketed last week to more than 3.2 million. That's a record, twice what experts had projected. It is an increase of 3 million over the previous week. The pandemic has forced thousands of businesses to close, but we are one step closer right now to that economic relief. The Senate approved the $2 trillion bill by a vote, which you never hear this, 96-0. So,
really?
Now heads to the House. If that passes, Trump will sign it. And we broke down basically how this was going to affect people and who it was going to affect. And of course, Adam, it will affect you not at all.
Nothing ever affects me, but the pandemic doesn't affect me either.
That's right.
But I'd like to start having conversations about getting back to work if we could,
Well,
or at least incrementally. Some people
Trump
could
wants
get back to
easier.
work.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not, my neighborhood is vastly different than New York City. It just is. It's completely different topographically. It's just, it's different.
The horse trails are the same, but
yeah, we're not the same. There's no, look, there's a very good argument for a Starbucks not opening in the middle of Manhattan, but there's not as strong an argument for the aforementioned Sports Clip haircutting place in La Cañada being open. Like, it's a different argument. My feeling is let's start slowly rolling out some of these other places, because we all shouldn't be based, and we shouldn't do any part of this on a worst case scenario. Like, it's like, well, what's happening in Italy or what's happening in Manhattan? It's like, that's bad, but that's not the same as what's happening in parts of Texas. Like, it should all be incremental. But, and look, there's decisions to be made. That's what I'm saying. You can go, here's the deal. You shut everything down, you shut it down in perpetuity, and you don't, if there's even a 1% chance of anybody being infected, you don't come back. And you can go, okay, but that's an argument that you're making in a vacuum. There's businesses that are going under, there are people that are going under, there's folks that need to work. There's a part where you don't get to come back, or it takes years to come back from where this is. We need to start having realistic conversations. Keep Manhattan closed down, open up the horse trail by Adam's house.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm a hero.
Maybe Dr. Fauci will say that today. We're going to open up the horse trail by Adam's house.
I got to say, it's probably less than 50%, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed anyway.
Something kind of interesting that I just fact checked, because we talked about it on the Conway show last night. This is a giant, unheard of number, this stimulus package, and money's going everywhere, to hospitals, to individuals, everything. Guess who's getting $25 million for a health stimulus package?
Please say me. Please say me.
Oh,
the Kennedy Center.
Kennedy Center.
Yeah. How'd they work their way in there?
Well, there was a lot of stuff there was a lot of, I guess, what they call pork. They had a lot of money carved out for other shit that didn't have anything to do with the recovery.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's a lot of stuff about the diversity and employment, and having just a lot of crazy nonsense that really didn't have anything to do with it. And I think the Kennedy Center was $35 million.
It was.
So it got, so here's what happened. I think Pelosi came back and she had a lot of stuff on there that the Republicans didn't want to sign off on. But of course, you can't go on record as not signing off on the stimulus package. So I think they got rid of a lot of sort of Green New Deal shit and border stuff, and they just went, fuck the Kennedy Center, give them the $25 million. Like, we got to get this thing signed. So I think it's a vestige of that one that had other pork on it.
That makes sense. And I don't know if you heard this one as well. I did not, I feel insulting Tim Conway Jr. by saying I have to fact check him. I haven't done that. But we also talked about on the show how is it true that if airlines take the money, that means they also have to hire a diversity officer or something to that effect?
They had that for like any business over 100 people or something. You had to hire diversity officers, you had a diversity quota, blah, blah, blah. You had to, it's slippery, slopey stuff, because for me, who's a libertarian, this notion of like the government shut down the economy. Then the government is going to make up for this by giving you a stimulus package. And you go, okay, so
deal,
for lack of a better term, I'm out $100,000 and now you're going to give me $100,000. And the government goes, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And they go, but here's what's attached to the $100,000. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to start doing this moving forward. Right. And it's kind of like, well, I get what you want. You do want a diversity program. You do want to have to report to the government on like who you've hired, what color they are, what their sexual proclivities are. I get that's what you want. And now seems like a good opportunity to get it, but it doesn't have that much to do with what just happened. What just happened is we stopped working and now we want to start working. This notion of the diversity program or the Green New Deal or lowering your carbon footprint, that's for elections. That's for later on. We all will decide on that. Right now, you can't hold me hostage to getting my money for my business unless I comply to this or that. So I think there was some of that going on, but I guess they've eased up on it. Agree. And they got from 35 million to 25 million for the Kennedy Center.
That's right. The U.S. military has ordered a 60-day freeze on all overseas troop movements, keeping all military personnel and their families in place for 2 months. I think they did have their first case of somebody at the Pentagon coming down with coronavirus in the military. So I think this is all related. And I think that goes both ways. You stay where you are, or, you stay overseas, or you stay here.
I have a Pentagon thought I've never had before.
Oh, please.
Okay, please.
The building is in the shape of a pentagon, right?
Correct.
Indeed it is.
Did they come up with the name Pentagon and then build it to that shape? Or did they build the building to that shape and then we're going to call it like the J. Edgar Hoover, memorial, whatever. And then someone went, let's go with the shape.
That's a great question. I always wonder if they had like an official name and it launched, like, the government, defense center or whatever it's called, and just became the Pentagon.
It's interesting, Tom.
Maybe there is an official name about it that we don't even know about, and it's a nickname, and we just all know the nickname, and there really is like the J. Edgar Hoover Defense Building or something. Although I think it's really funny to imagine someone who's like, just don't get this shape wrong, man, because I've been really wanting to see the name, the Pentagon, in our vernacular.
Also, what other buildings do they name after this shape? Then I'll go, I work in the long, tall thingy. It's like that's called the Sears Tower. Yeah, we call it the high. We call it the taller than it is wide building.
I got one. New York, Flatiron Building.
Oh, yeah.
That's the only one I can think of.
But that's in the Flatiron District, though, right?
But it's in the shape of a flatiron. It's a triangular building that separates two streets.
Is it in the meatpacking district, or is it?
No, it's downtown or Downer Town.
See, Gina, this is a tough sell because you have two bald guys and one guy with naturally curly hair. So we don't use that flatiron to.
No.
Good point.
Yeah, the Pentagon. The shape.
Somebody look into that.
Oh, Adam, breaking news.
We did.
Breaking news. It turns out the baseball player you're probably thinking of from Taft High School, Hall of Famer Robin Yount.
Robin Yount.
Not a pitcher, but probably the most famous baseball player.
There's a pitcher I'm still thinking of.
Maybe. Well, Gabe Kapler also, but again, not a pitcher. And I can't find Larry
Saberhagen. Where did Brett Saberhagen go?
I thought he was from El Segundo.
All right. Well, we'll try to figure it out.
Look him up.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
All right. So
is Brett Saberhagen called Saberhagen?
Nope. Adam
lost you.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Froze.
No, and you know what? I'm a jerk. I think I'm thinking of George Brett. I'm just going through my Kansas City Royals Rolodex.
Yeah, you had
Saberhagen. He actually is a Valley guy, Brett Saberhagen, went to Grover Cleveland High School.
Oh, Cleveland High is down the street from Taft High.
Maybe that's
why I got it confused. Sorry, go ahead.
Now, we've had these little indicators that things are kind of weird out there, and we're getting it, but now it may be truly time to panic for some people. McDonald's is forced to change their operations. So they say in an effort to simplify things in our kitchen and for our crew and ensure the best possible experience for our customer, they're doing away with the all-day breakfast menu till further notice.
Wait, we had a little interruption there. Till what? Till further notice?
They're doing away with the all-day breakfast menu.
Oh,
come on.
Yeah.
Now it's a tragedy.
I told you. I should have prepared you better.
Start taking this shit seriously.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're solely focusing on their most popular menu choices. So who knows what other delights will be taken.
Do away with salads for a minute. Let's just have breakfast, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. And who are you fucking kidding with the cut up apple in a bag? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a waste of time right there.
Well, first off, cut up apples can be got anywhere. Why do we need McDonald's to give you cut up apples for?
I do not.
I love the honesty of In-N-Out Burger. Like In-N-Out Burger, there's no fucking salads. There's no cut up apples. There's no, dietary, side of the menu for folks that are counting calories. You go in there, you get a fucking double burger. You give the guy Secret handshake. He puts another patty on there and a snot rock. You fucking sit in your car and eat it.
Yeah.
They don't make no pretense, and that's exactly how we like it, right?
Dietary restrictions. They want to know if you want 4 patties instead of 1.
I got the triple.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I was there a week ago and I got the 3x3.
Oh, really?
It's fantastic. And they have the secret menu. And here's the best thing is that they have a limited menu. And that's I think why they're amazing. Too many places offer too many different things. Like, just specialize in something and knock it out of the park and stop fucking around with so many options.
Not only that, but if you ever get caught behind one of these fucking shitheads who goes in, I went into Carney's. Carney's does great hot dogs. I get hot dogs from Carney's. I love a Carney's dog. I pull up behind some guy. He orders a taco salad.
Yeah.
The fucking chick behind the counter is like, let me find. She's like looking at her quarterback wristband, flips it open. Look, she's signaling. She had to go to the back. Fuck that. First off, the taco salad doesn't need to be on the fucking menu. You make hot dogs, you make hamburgers. And I'll tell you, it just struck me what In-N-Out Burger has done. In-N-Out has figured out the burger business sort of like porn has figured out their customers. They're like, at some point someone went, well, what about the part where the guy's dressed up as a sailor and then she's walking her dog and they meet in the park? Just have them fucking. Just cut right to them fucking. It's like, yeah, but shouldn't they meet? How are they fucking?
What's the origin story?
Nobody cares. They want to see some pussy and some dick. That's it. That's what In-N-Out does. It's just literally, I want a fucking burger. I'm here.
At In-N-Out, it is just that. They're like, here are the pussies, here are the dicks.
Instead of John 3:16 at the bottom of the cup, it'll just say pussies and dicks.
Pussies and dicks. That's all it is. How many dicks? That's up to you.
Yeah.
How much snatch? The world is your oyster, but that's all we got. We don't have any fucking cut up apples.
Yeah, I really appreciate it too. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. Especially in these trying times, it's that familiar. You want the 3-by with like a lettuce wrap, Brian?
Yeah, that's right.
Smart. What do you do on the 3-by?
I 3 patties. I had 3 patties, 3 cheese. So the triple double, or what's called a 3x3, animal style, with a lettuce wrap. And it was everything I needed. It was fantastic.
I want one of those right now.
It was so good.
I can't figure out if I have a boner because I've been talking about porn or. All right, Gina, what else we got?
Speaking of In-N-Out, here's a couple of services that are really helping people out. Hertz announced Wednesday they will provide free car rentals for healthcare workers in New York City to help them get to work. Four Seasons Hotel on 57th Street in New York will provide free lodging for doctors, nurses, medical personnel working, around the clock for them. Starbucks giving all first responders and healthcare workers free coffee. If you're a police officer, firefighter, paramedic, doctor, the list goes on. You get a free cup through the next month.
You know what I've learned? I don't think coffee has any value because the very first thing we give out for free is coffee. Like, come on down, volunteer at the Y. We got coffee over here. We're setting up coffee over here. It's like everyone's always I'm bringing coffee. It's like, maybe this is how Starbucks is so fucking rich. They're charging $5 for something that evidently is free.
Right.
Because every single meeting, every AA meeting, every gathering, every neighborhood watch meeting, every school meeting, and so there's just coffee.
The coffee urn.
Maybe it's free.
Walk in any hotel lobby, no matter what tier. It could be like a Days Inn or a Four Seasons. They're like, "Do you want a cup of coffee? It's free."
Right.
When you're getting your tires rotated.
Coffee's free or cheap or almost free because, Adam, the one thing they gave us at Loveline, Westwood One, coffee.
That's right.
Nothing else. There's nothing else.
Chris has an answer on the Pentagon discussion. Chris?
Can't hear you.
Let's let him go.
Sorry. So when they're planning the Pentagon, they were going to originally
planning.
Yeah, when they're planning it, they're going to construct it about a mile north from where it was. And the way that land was shaped was the shape of a pentagon. and the only things they said was it can't be tall because we have restricted steel usage because of the war going on right now, but it needs to house like 40,000 people. So they said, okay, we'll just build it as wide as we can, and it will be shaped as a pentagon. But then people complained that it was going to ruin the skyline and that it's blocking the cemetery. So like, all right, let's go move it down south, but let's just keep the plans that we have now because we already wrote it all down and it's already designed. So they just kept the pentagon shape.
So it was built in World War II because they're trying to save steel.
That's right.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it was always called the Pentagon. Well, there you go.
A name like Department of Defense headquarters or something.
Yeah, just inland with 5 sides.
I guess.
All right, let's do one more, Gina Grad.
All right. So anecdotally and on social media, I have heard some people begging to differ with this statistic, but this article says all the stay-at-home time is bringing couples and families closer together. A new survey found that some 50% of respondents say staying at home is bringing them closer to their partner. 67% say they're seeing their partner and families much more. Before all this, 57% said they struggled to find time with their partner. Now, 74% say they're spending more quality time with their loved ones. 40% believe all this time will benefit their relationship in the long run. The survey also found that 2/3 of respondents believe there will be, and we talked about this, a big baby boom in 9 months.
Tom, how's it working for you?
I mean, I actually have enjoyed being here, but I'm also like pretty much a homebody, so like it doesn't feel like that big of a departure. We haven't really been banging much, but I also wasn't, I wasn't feeling great. She wasn't feeling great. I don't think we had COVID, but there's also other things going around. So I don't know. I'll try to get it in there tonight, but I think there's going to be a lot of babies in 9 months. I do believe that.
Yeah, you don't have to film it. Just like text me a thumbs up when you're in.
Okay.
An eggplant, a thumbs up.
So I'm counting on this. I realize I'm the worst person in the world because I've been watching everyone lounge around my house, which is fine, but I realize they're doing it on my dime. So I said to I have a full-time nanny, which I don't really need, but she's turned into my nanny. So I said to her last night, I was going out to do something like 5, and I said, "What are we eating tonight?" And she said, "Leftovers." And I said, "You know what? I'm in the mood for a steak. You make me a steak and they can eat leftovers." And she said, "Okay." And then I went to work, and then I came back, and there were 4 huge steaks just sitting on top, getting all seasoned up.
That wasn't the plan.
Yeah, it was like that's $31 a pop. That's $31 a unit. And I said to her, "What happened to the steak for the jefe, for the boss man?" And she's like, "I'd get everyone a steak." And I'm like, No, you're shitting on my point. And then she's like, I said, "What happened to leftovers for the little people, for them, for the non-earners?" And she was like, "Oh, we'll eat leftovers tomorrow." And I'm like, you're ruining my entire point here. I want the steak. They eat the leftovers.
I want them to watch me eat steak.
That's right. That's the point. I'm going to sit on a throne. I'm going to eat steak. At some point when my son is crying and saying, "Papa, may I have a piece?" I'll pretend to give it to him and then throw it to the dog real fast.
Oh, that's real good.
That's my move. All right, Gina, let's bring it home.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
I wasn't ready for that.
Gina.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
Last but not least, Simply Safe. Simply Safe. 2 eyes in there. It is Simply Safe. Protect your home with Simply Safe. Go to simplysafe.com/Adam. And Tom Segura's stand-up special is really outstanding. It's called Ball Hog. Available now on Netflix. It's very strong. And watch it. And now watch it, hearing this conversation, think about the sort of psychological dynamic. So you can get a little peek behind the curtain of like how Tom is constructing these jokes. It'll be a new fun way to watch it. Also, Your Mom's House, a very funny podcast, Wednesdays on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. And website, tomsegura.com. Tom, are we missing anything?
No, I think that's it, man. I can't wait to podcast again with you. This is a lot of fun, man.
Well, hopefully I'll come on and be on yours sooner than later.
That's when the lockdown is loosened up a little bit. I hope that happens.
Yeah, I think you're on the west side now. I think you went from the valley to the west side. I think we were
But we
talking
still
about.
do it in the valley. We still do it in the valley.
Oh, you're still doing the valley?
Yeah.
Okay. So until next time, this is Adam Carolla for Tom Segura, Gina Grad, and Bald Bryan saying mahalo.